I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we move to citizen participation. This is an opportunity for you to address us and speak to items that are not on the agenda.
My name is John Fye. I am a resident of Fort Collins. I live at 1405 Briarwood Road. Additionally, I am the Republican candidate for Colorado House of Representatives for House District 53, which encompasses all of Fort Collins, west of College Avenue, and part of southeast Fort Collins. I would like to address the council on violations of Fourth Amendment rights of a citizen here in the community. Recently, I read an article in the Colorado in which brought me great concern. I read that our sheriff's department forgot a GPS tracking device on one of our citizens' vehicles for several months, placed there without a warrant. That is unacceptable in my mind and a violation of the citizens' rights to privacy and from unlawful search and seizure as protected by the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. I'm here before you today to remind the mayor and members of City Council that the sole purpose of government is to protect the rights of the people, not to oppress and intimidate them. Thomas Jefferson made this clear in our Declaration of Independence, and I quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Given that the actions of the Larimer County Sheriff appear to be in violation of such rights, I expect that you too will stand up for the rights of the people and to denounce actions such as this." Thank you for your time and attention.
For those of you that haven't spoken or aren't aware, a green light goes on when your 2 minutes starts, a yellow light goes on when there's 30 seconds left, and the red light means you're done talking. We will allow one sentence and that's it. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I am Stacy Lynne. I am Jaden's mom. I never thought I would stand in public and have such a horrifying story to tell. And so, I stand here tonight because silence and fear breed corruption and crime. If I don't speak, I become an accomplice, and I refuse to lower myself into that toxic cesspool. On December 19th, 2011, I was illegally arrested for just a few blocks from here. I was illegally jailed that same day. The night before all of that, my cell phone was illegally wiretapped. Do you know what the district attorney charged me with? Nothing. That's right, no charges. I was arrested, jailed, and my phone tapped for no valid legal or lawful cause. If you believe what Larimer County Sheriff Justin Smith proclaimed in the Fort Collins, Coloradoan, you might think I was trying to kidnap my own son. Here's what really happened. Julie Coons Field is a judge just down the street from here. She issued a court order that was to be effective immediately, except she didn't serve me the order. Can you believe it? I was not even served an order. This is where it gets sickening. Field didn't serve me the order so I could be arrested, jailed, and then forced through extortion to place my son in a dangerous situation. Why did Smith and Field do this? It was the only way they could steal my son. I was ambushed and robbed of my legal and lawful right to protect my son from harm. At this point, you may be thinking, she must have done something wrong to have her son so violently severed from the only parent he has ever known, from his family, from his home, from his pets, from his school, from his teachers, and from his friends. An order that is issued effective immediately is unheard of. Why did Field do it? Well, maybe Field is thinking that exploding a boy's world effective immediately and without a single second of transition time is in Jaden's best interest. I will be allowing other people to finish for me. And I'm going to stand by. This is my father, and I'm going to stand by while he speaks for me.
Guess what I was accused of doing to my son? Nothing.
We need your name.
Bill Mawhinney. I've been a resident of Fort Collins 35 years. There was no involvement of Child Protective Services or the Department of Human Services. There were no accusations or intimations or hints that I was anything except a really good mom. Now, You may be wondering what all of this trauma has to do with you. This is why you should know our story. More than a year ago, I stood right here and explained to you about how this city and county has a serious problem. I told you that the innocent women, children, and men were being hurt by the crimes that are being committed inside these city limits by public servants who are supposed to be protecting innocent people. I told you in August that I was surrounded by 3 deputies while I was inside the so-called Justice Center. Remember? Those 3 deputies surrounded me for 13 minutes and they thought it was funny. I wasn't amused. Do you know what I've been doing since my son was abducted in December? Ask Sheriff Smith. He knows exactly where I've been, what I've been doing, who I've been with, and where I eat, where I shop, and where I walk. He knows this because after I was illegally arrested, illegally jailed, and illegally wiretapped, Sheriff Smith decided to secretly follow me for 5 months. Do you know what they were planning to do to me while they were following me? In February of 2012, the county and the Attorney General were notified of my lawsuit against the sheriff and his deputies. Maybe that's why they were following me. What do you think? This is where the city of Fort Collins comes into this story. Crimes continue to be committed against me and my son inside these city limits. Reports of these crimes have been made to the Fort Collins Police Department.
My name is Jean Hines. Although the city may have wished to remain disconnected from Jaden's tragic case, that separation is no longer possible. During a meeting with District Attorney Larry Abrahamson a few weeks ago, he read through a few of the statutory crimes that apply to Sheriff Smith's actions against me and my son. Those crimes have been committed in this city. I know that most of you on that panel have children. Can you imagine what kind of damage your child would experience if you were brutally separated from each other? How do you think your child would be doing mentally and emotionally if he had been stripped of his mom, his home, his friends, his pets, his family, his school, his teachers, his ties to his community, and his entire identity? What would you do to save your own child from that horror? Jaden has been gone for 5 months. That is 167 days, 4,008 hours, 240,480 minutes, 14,428,800 seconds. December 20th was the last morning that Jaden was a boy. He woke up for school that day and said, "Mom, I want to take a shower tonight before the Christmas program so that my hair is extra clean." I agreed. Jaden's brand new Christmas shoes, his new suit pants, his freshly pressed white shirt, and his new red tie are still hanging in the very same spot as they were when he hopped out of bed with happy anticipation. His Christmas clothes remain untouched and unworn. Jaden did not get to go to his Christmas program this year. Statutory crimes, human rights violations, civil rights violations, and natural rights violations continue to be painfully committed against Jaden and me. My son is being used as a weapon. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Why? I think the editorial... Okay.
Jim Hartman. My children have a good friend, a little boy, who they also lost. His name is Jaden. Why? I think the editorial board from Fort Collins, Colorado said it best. Retaliation. Retaliation for what? Knowing my rights and the law protecting a small business owner, speaking out for targeted populations and for telling the truth. These crimes become wicked evil when an innocent child and his innocent mom are the targets of political retaliation. Unlike the officials involved in our case, I have not broken any laws. I have not broken any statutes. Recently, Jaden quietly asked me, "Mom, are there any good sheriffs?" I said, "Yes, Jaden, there are good sheriffs, and very soon you will get to meet one." Tonight, we're asking the City of Fort Collins Police and the 8th Judicial District Attorney to prosecute Sheriff Justin Smith for statutory crimes. He's betrayed the public trust and he's publicly admitted to breaking the law. We're also asking for the City of Fort Collins Police and the 8th Judicial District to prosecute Judge Julie Kunzfield for her statutory crimes. These crimes have been officially reported. Written statements have been submitted. We have case numbers. The taxpayers of Larimer County and now the taxpayers of the city of Fort Collins are going to have to be paying a high price for these officials' crimes. Are you satisfied yet with how much damage you have caused me and my son? When will you say enough is enough? And I just want to say that there's a lot of people here on this issue, and I've been involved in quiet ways in our community for many, many years. There's a lot more out there that are rumbling and that are active. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Russ Harvey. The citizens of Fort Collins are experiencing a double standard in law enforcement. There's one standard for citizens and another standard for the servants of the citizens. This can no longer be tolerated. As elected officials who are paid to implement our will and our demands under the United States Constitution, Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, we are demanding a redress of grievances in regards to the outrageous conduct of our sheriff, Justin Smith, and other deputies of our local sheriff's office for their blatant and criminal violation of Stacy Lynne's rights by stalking her for 5 months using a GPS tracking device secretly mounted to the bottom of her car, admitting to stalking her and then lying about it, felony, aggravated harassment of a witness, since Stacy has a pending lawsuit filed against the sheriff's office for false arrest and false imprisonment, also committed within the city of Fort Collins. Also, felony aggravated harassment of a victim and failing to investigate reported child abuse and domestic violence, and acting in collusion with a judge, a servant put into a position of trust, Julie Kuntz Field, who has helped facilitate these crimes against Stacy and her 9-year-old son, Jaden. These criminal violations are going to cost the taxpayers of Fort Collins tremendously. Just like the Timothy Masters case that cost the city $5 million and the county $5 million. It's already been estimated that the violations against Stacy and Jaden have reached this amount. So as established by the First Amendment of our U.S. Constitution, I'm hereby making the demand that you, the elected officials, city council members, act upon your duties overseeing the appointed police chief, John Hudo, and see that he performs his duties in arresting Sheriff Justin Smith and all the deputies involved, along with Julie Kuntz Field, for these crimes which were committed within the city of Fort Collins. Failing to act upon your duties as elected council members
You're done.
will also constitute a violation of Stacy's and Jaden's constitutionally enumerated rights. Thank you.
No.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Carroll, and I am an educator and psychologist. I am here to speak on behalf of Jaden Lynne, the child, in the situation where dangerous actions by Sheriff Justin Smith and Judge Julie Kuntz Field have been taken which endanger his well-being. There are basic principles of child psychology and responsible adult behavior that result in successfully adjusted, confident young adults, and Smith and Field have violated these precepts. Whether adults realize it or not, their behavior teaches a very important concept to children called locus of control. This concept is the idea that a person has control over what he does and what will happen as a result. Children who understand this basic premise are characterized as being capable of making decisions, working toward a goal, having confidence, and having a sense of self-determination. Their world is predictable, and they gain a sense of safety from this awareness. They are able to trust the people and the forces of nature that also behave in predictable, controllable ways. But the world is not ideal, and neither children nor their parents have control over everything. Wise parents will prepare their children for unexpected and even upsetting events. While it is advisable to build some stamina in children for disappointment and sadness, it is generally believed that children thrive in an orderly environment over which they exercise some degree of control. Children should not live in fear of arbitrary, capricious adults, nor should they learn that they are powerless. The child custody switching process that has occurred in the last 6 months between Jaden and his parents has created a situation of imbalance, tension, unpredictability, dangerous to a child's well-being. Tearing Jaden from his home right before the holidays is inexcusable. Setting him up for a visit with his mother and canceling that visit is cruel. Larimer County Court and law enforcement personnel have not respected this most basic psychological need for predictable outcomes and reasonable transitions, and they should be held accountable.
Good evening. I'm Maureen Patterson, a former teacher of 12-plus years. During this time, I was constantly reminded that if I ever saw or knew of any evidence of child abuse, however slight, then I needed to report it immediately. Surely you, as City Council members, also have been reminded of the same obligation and duty. The last time I saw Jaden, he was sitting on a blanket in a park with his mother, Stacy, peacefully and happily having a picnic and listening to the music and speakers at the function. It was remarkable how happy him and his mother were together. Now I hear of him being jerked from this loving environment that he has known all his life. Being put in the care of a stranger in a completely foreign environment, away from friends and family, would be traumatic for any child. This has to be an incredible abuse to Jaden. His loving mother was never accused of any allegations, yet orders were given for him to be removed and given to his father, who has documented anger problems. I am asking you to please investigate this abusive situation. Time is of the essence to prevent further compounding what would be a horrible situation for any child. Thank you for your attention.
Good evening. My name is John Malsby. Thank you for letting me speak here tonight. I want to speak just briefly about two things. One is called ICLEI, and also ICLEI is part of a bigger United Nations program called Agenda 21. ICLEI is the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives or Issues. It was founded in 1990. There were 200 local governments from 43 countries. There are currently 14 offices and 200 staff worldwide, and there's 1,200 cities that belong to ICLEI. Fort Collins is one of them, as listed today on their website. One of the statements on the ICLEI website says, "Now is the time for cities and countries to join together and restore living systems to safe conditions and define a way we can live and thrive on Earth as a global community." One of the, as I said, Agenda 21, ICLEI is part of that initiative. Christine Stewart, who is a former Canadian Minister of the Environment, made this statement: "No matter if the science of global warming is all phony, climate change provides the greatest opportunity to bring about justice and equality in the world." ICLEI also pushes forth the idea of sustainable development. This was a concept introduced in 1987 by a gentleman by the name of Gro Harlem Brundtland, who is Vice President of the World Socialist Party. The Brundtland Commission made this statement: "Poverty is a major cause and effect of global environmental problems. It is therefore futile to attempt to deal with environmental problems without a broader perspective that encompasses the factors underlying world poverty and international equality. The ultimate goal of Agenda 21 is to have a one world government, one media, one authority for development." I find it interesting that a lot of Stacy Lynne's problems developed after she was trying to expose ICLEI and Agenda 21. Thank you.
Hi, Dee Amick, Park Street. I'm a friend and former neighbor of Stacy and Jaden Lynne. I attended a Larimer County Family Court hearing early this year, which resulted in Stacy losing parental rights of Jaden, who she formerly cared exclusively for. He's a friend of my daughter's and a number of other kids on the block. Full custody was given to the natural father. As far as I can tell, there's no basis for the resulting ruling of that hearing. Stacy is an intelligent, law-abiding, ethical individual, and above all, she's a strong parent. I fear that her use of freedom of speech and her desire to share information has put her in harm's way. Not only has she been marginalized and discredited by this community, son and mother are now suffering terribly during this separation. Jaden is innocent, yet he is being punished and traumatized by this entire situation, by his new living situation, by his loss of his mother, and by the treatment of his mother. I ask you, who is acting in the best interests of the child? Who is acting in the best interests of Jaden in this situation? And who has the courage to do what is right? I feel like people are acting like they're part of some kind of high school clique. I've even talked to officials and service personnel, and I get negative comments about Stacy Lynne. And this is about a really bright boy who's being severely damaged. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Austin Monhup, and I'm more on the Jaden side of the Stacy Lynne case because I've gone through all that trauma and everything and the physical abuse that it seemed like the courts allowed to happen and were able to make a profit off of it. Because from what I've seen and from what I've lived through and from helping all these other people around the nation, it seems like the judges and attorneys put the kids in the abusive homes or whatever the scenario is. So the good parent, because they know that the good parent would pay whatever it takes to get them out of that. So that's, to me, and from what I've seen, it seems like that's their way of making money. And I just completely think that it is unfair to us kids. I had a friend earlier this year that actually went through it, and from what I've seen, it seems like the government literally killed him because he was going through everything and he was put on antidepressants for no reason at all, and he ended up dying once he got out of rehab and all that, once he got his life straight and good and going good for him and a chance to actually have a future. He got put back on the antidepressants because the courts believed it was right. And to take someone's life away that's close to you and close to a lot of people, it is not right. And that's the way it sounds like and it seems like this country is going, not just necessarily Larimer County, but this whole country is going to. There have been a handful of kids that have died nationwide, and I fear for my sisters every day that they're going to end up dying because they're still in the households. Thank you for listening.
My name is Larry Wallace, and I have a question for the council. Have you ever heard of kidnapping without a ransom note? No, because it's called abduction. And this is exactly what has happened to Stacy Lynne. Her child has been legally abducted by the legal system in this town. Now, you notice I didn't say he was legally kidnapped. That's because she would have had the opportunity to have a ransom note. With a ransom note, you can at least buy back the freedom of the person who's been kidnapped. Stacy Lynne doesn't have that opportunity. She's had her last 3 legal child visitations torn away from her. I mean, she's not even able to see her son legally in this city. I mean, the injustice is absolutely ridiculous. So I'm asking the city council, would you please look at this injustice and do something about it?
Hi, my name is Stacy Christine. I work on a national level, raising awareness as to what is happening and why our children are being kidnapped and forced to live in abusive situations. It is very saddening and sickening to see that we would take the innocence of these children to do this. I have several cases that are nationwide cases. I do believe that the Jaden Stacy Lynne case is going there. I believe that it would be an opportunity for the city and county of Fort Collins and for Larimer County to set a precedence for the nation that this is not acceptable to be happening by a corporation that is supposed to be protecting and serving the innocence of these children.
Hello, my name is Chuck Churchman. I'm from Denver. I come up on a regular basis to support Stacy Lynne. Something that has not been brought up this evening that I have to bring up is this is not about a divorce, a bad divorce. They were never married. This fellow, Jeffrey Pappenheim, came out of the clear blue and tried to lay claim to the son that he fathered. But that boy was in Stacy Lynne's custody for 9 years. He had never met the man. I am incensed, all right, that this could be going on, that somebody could actually take them away. How does somebody who was never even married to a pregnant woman come back and lay claim to a kid 9 years later? That is wrong. Further, the reason this happened is because Stacy Lynne is a great teacher. What she's been teaching people about is ICLEI, which has been mentioned here several times tonight. The International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives. If you Google it, you will find John Hickenlooper's name at the top of the list. In fact, most of the politicians here know about ICLEI. We found that out. We found that out through actual talking to them. One of them even told us, and he quoted it perfectly, said the point of ICLEI is they say personal property is dangerous. Children are personal property. So this is being forced on Stacy Lynne because she's been teaching people about this. And I personally think that you as human beings should at least support her in her endeavors to get her child back. Please, I beseech you, help us with this and get Jaden back to his mother. Thank you.
The Pledge of Allegiance that we recited and concluded with the words...
Please give us your name,
Oh,
please.
John Wines. Concluded with the words, "with liberty and justice for all." So I'd like to point out to the members of the City Council that as long as men like Timothy Masters, who was railroaded by police officer Broderick and thrown in jail for 10 years for no reason, and Stacy Lynne, whose son was illegally abducted by government officials, that as long as these situations exist, that we do not have liberty and justice for all. These are just meaningless words that we recite. So I would urge City Council to carefully examine into these charges of injustice and criminality. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address council? Okay, seeing none, I will close the citizen participation element of this meeting and bring it back to council. I'm going to take the liberty to consolidate some of the discussion that went on here, if council would be okay with that. First of all, in general, I would like to address the issues that we've heard regarding the county and the sheriff, and in general terms, where is the role of the city when it comes to county issues and what we've heard here, and what is our possibilities or lack thereof? If you could just in general address the role of the city as it plays with the county. We've had a lot of people ask us for action, so if you can generalize that for us?
Perhaps I could start with a general description of the powers of the council, and they have to do with making policy for the city and making laws for the city, and those are the ordinances of the city. The council and, well, the city manager is the head of the city government, and so he, the chief of police, answers to the city manager. in terms of the relationship between the city government as a whole and the court system is separate and apart from the city government, and by the court system, I'm referring to the state court system, not the municipal court. And it's my understanding that there's a case that occurred in Larimer County District Court, and people are very concerned about the judge's ruling in that case and some action that was taken pursuant to the court's ruling. The council has no authority to overturn the ruling of the Larimer County District Court. There is an appeal system, and I assume that the people who are concerned are aware of that and have availed themselves of whatever remedies might exist there. There are concerns that have been expressed about the conduct of members of the Larimer County Sheriff's Department. The council has no jurisdiction directly over Larimer County's law enforcement activities. The city police are empowered to enforce the penal laws of the state as well as the city, and if there is an allegation of criminal misconduct on the part of any person within the city limits, police services has the authority to investigate those allegations and the discretion to make a determination as to whether probable cause exists to commence or to present, in the case of state laws, potential prosecution to the district attorney. It's the district attorney and not the city that's ultimately responsible for determining whether those kinds of crimes should be prosecuted. So in summary, in my view, in looking at and considering the allegations that have been made, the potential role of the city government would be limited to the possibility of investigating and presenting to the district attorney for potential prosecution any criminal conduct that may have occurred on the part of any person within the city limits.
Let's do it.
And there was a reference to our police chief and his relationship to enforcement of action against the county sheriff. Is that in his purview?
As I said, any person. The question is whether or not in a situation such as this, where the allegations are against other law enforcement officials in the city, whether it would be appropriate for another agency, assuming that the facts warrant investigation, which I'm not saying is a foregone conclusion, to be involved through a mutual aid agreement with another police agency. So it's not that the sheriff or any person is exempt from possible investigation. It could be a question of the propriety of or the appropriateness of another law enforcement agency investigating particular allegations depending upon who's involved.
Thank you. Any council comment regarding this? Okay. Otherwise, I was going to, on the sheriff? Okay. I was going to move to one of the